My name is Marin Ellison, and I never thought a simple act of kindness at a Walmart checkout line would turn my whole life upside down. I was just trying to help an elderly woman who couldn't pay for her groceries. $150, that's all it was. But that quiet choice made me late for a dinner where people measured worth in punctuality and appearances. That night, I learned that decency can cost you status, love, even respect. But sometimes, it's the only thing that can save your soul. The email arrived at 3:17 p.m., polite, cold, and carrying the weight of judgment. From the subject line, I knew it wasn't a request. It was a summons. The room at Harbor Hope was nearly empty, sunlight bending through the blinds in tired gold bars across the desks. I'd been filling out reports, veterans waiting for winter housing, women trying to find a bed before the snow came, when the message appeared. Attendance required. Dress code, formal navy. Even the punctuation was superior. I reread it twice, the way you reread bad news hoping it might change tone. It didn't. Behind me, Harold leaned over the divider, coffee in hand. "You're not applying for sainthood, are you?" he teased. "Because that's a tough crowd to impress." I smiled without answering. Humor was his way of patching cracks he didn't understand. He meant well, he always did. When Darren walked in, I knew he'd seen the email too. He looked polished, like the answer key to a life I'd never been given. He set a folder on my desk, careful not to disturb the stack of applications beneath. "It's not a big deal," he started, which always meant it was. He opened the folder, a printed list, 12 bullet points. His mother's signature style, numbered mercy. Don't mention your job. Don't discuss money or hardship. Don't touch the wine glass until she does. Each rule felt like a small erasure. I traced the edge of the paper with my thumb. "Do you want me there as your partner?" I asked quietly. "Or your performance piece?" He hesitated. "Just, please don't make this harder." There it was, the polite request to become invisible. Outside the office window, the Veterans Center parking lot was half filled with men in worn coats, one of them waving at me through the glass. I waved back. That gesture, simple, seen, felt more real than any seat at a polished table. By the time I reached home, dusk had turned the city into a soft gray hush. My apartment smelled faintly of cinnamon and dust, the radiator clanking like it wanted to speak. I laid the navy dress across the bed. It shimmered faintly under the lamp, more uniform than garment. I stared at it until the fabric blurred. "Kindness doesn't need an audience," I whispered. "But tonight, I'll need one." As I set my phone alarm for 4:30, the screen lit up with the dinner's subject line again. "Attendance required." I smiled, not because I agreed, but because I knew attendance could mean more than showing up. I was on time, until compassion got in the way. A single choice between punctuality and decency sets everything in motion. The plan had been airtight. Leave work at 4:15, call the cab, arrive by 4:50 sharp. Darren's text still glowed on my screen like a countdown. Arrive at 4:50 or don't come at all. I had even rehearsed the route in my head, the timing of every stoplight. But life, with its cruel sense of humor, always seems to hide its detours where your conscience lives. Walmart's automatic doors opened with their tired sigh as I stepped in for a bouquet. The fluorescent light flattened everything: faces, colors, intentions. The smell of rubber soles and popcorn oil floated through the air, indifferent to human urgency. I picked the flowers quickly, white chrysanthemums, neutral, inoffensive, and headed toward the checkout line, already fishing for my wallet. That's when I saw her. The woman ahead of me, frail, wrapped in a thin cardigan that had lost its shape, stood frozen at the register. A row of groceries half-bagged, a nervous shuffle of hands. The cashier, a young woman whose name tag read Cassidy, had that hollowed-out look of someone already on her next shift in her mind. "Card declined," she repeated, louder this time. because volume sometimes passes for efficiency. The people behind us exhaled in chorus. One muttered, "If you can't pay, don't shop." The total blinked in red, $147.86. The old woman's hand trembled around the worn card. "Try again," she whispered. The machine beeped, cruel and final. Cassidy sighed. "Do you want to remove some items?" The woman shook her head, voice barely air. "They're for my daughter's kids." I glanced at the clock above the register. 4:44. My cab was waiting. My stomach tightened. Morality was a ticking clock and mine had a deadline. "I'll cover it," I heard myself say. Cassidy blinked. "Ma'am?" "I'll pay for hers," I said again, firmer this time. The woman turned, startled. "You don't even know me." "Maybe that's why it matters," I said, handing over my card. For a moment, nobody breathed. Then the machine chirped, approved, and the tension drained like water down a sink. Cassidy began scanning the rest of the groceries, slower now, almost tender. "You're a good one," she murmured. I shook my head. "No, just running late." As the woman gathered her bags, I pulled the navy scarf from around my neck and draped it gently over her shoulders. "It's colder than it looks tonight." She touched it like something fragile, her fingers brushing mine. "Thank you," she said, "for more than this." Outside, the parking lot was slick with sleet, the sky already dimming. My cab was gone. I half ran through the slush toward the main road, the flowers crushed slightly against my coat. My phone buzzed. "Darren." I answered breathlessly. "Where are you?" "I'm coming," I said. You were supposed to be here 10 minutes ago." "I helped someone." He exhaled, sharp, annoyed. "Do you realize what you've done?" "Yes," I said, watching my reflection in a dark car window. I chose not to look away. His reply landed like ice. "That's not what people like my mother respect." By the time I reached Whitmore Lake, my hair had curled damp against my cheeks. The marble gates loomed ahead, tall as judgment. I passed through them alone, the cold biting through my dress as if to remind me of the hour I'd paid for decency. Inside, warmth pressed too heavily against the skin. Candles, polished wood, laughter arranged like furniture. My heels sank into the carpet as a butler led me toward the dining room. My pulse was still too fast, my conscience louder than the music, and then I froze. Through the reflection on the marble foyer mirror, I saw her again, the old woman from Walmart, walking through the dining room doors, my scarf still around her neck. The world shrank to a heartbeat. The dining room looked like a courtroom with better lighting. The air shimmered with quiet rules, the kind that punished you for not knowing them. A 12-seat mahogany table stretched like a polished runway beneath a chandelier, crystal throwing tidy constellations over china and water goblets. Lake wind tapped the window panes with cold fingers. The string quartet on the speaker was turned down so low it felt like someone humming behind a closed door. Patricia claimed the head of the table with effortless economy of motion, then indicated our places with a flick of her wrist. Darren didn't take the chair beside me. He crossed to the far side, aligning his napkin with military care, as if proximity itself might be an infraction. "Marin, I've read about your organization," Patricia said, pausing half a breath on the ellipsis like a surgeon examining an X-ray. Her smile was immaculate. Her eyes more precise than warm. Mr. Lang materialized to pour water, his silver tray steady, his gaze carefully nowhere. "It's small," I answered, "but it does what it says it does." "Do you believe charity works without discipline?" she asked, lifting her spoon as though the question were merely soup temperature. "Only when compassion isn't managed like a stock portfolio," I said. Darren's fork halted midair, tinny against porcelain. Patricia's smile didn't move. "Interesting. I prefer results over gestures." "Gestures don't keep people warm," I said, softer now. Blankets do. A pause. The chandelier thrummed faintly with electricity. Somewhere a log settled in the hearth with a hush. Patricia took in Darren's stiffness, my stillness, the inch of air between our plates that felt like a mile. She asked about budgets, oversight, the number of beds versus the number of donors. I answered plainly, careful with the truth. Manners were weapons here. Honesty needed armor. Then, a slip in the silk. When she tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, the fabric at her shoulder shifted. A navy cashmere scarf, simple, elegant, threaded near the edge with a tiny familiar fray. My breath snagged. The room contracted around that loop of loose silver thread. Patricia's gaze touched my face and stayed. Is something the matter? No, I whispered, pulse audible in my throat. Just déjà vu. She placed her spoon down with the quiet emphasis of a gavel. You didn't recognize me at Walmart, did you? Darren blinked. Mother? My chair felt suddenly unstable. The fluorescent flatness of the store, the beep of the scanner, the softness of her hand when I gave her the scarf. Everything overlaid the chandelier light like a transparency. That's good, she continued, voice even. Real kindness doesn't ask for recognition. Darren looked between us, searching for the script no one had given him. Mother, what are you saying? I'm saying your partner has integrity you could study from. Her tone didn't sharpen, it cooled. The distinction cut deeper. Silence opened like a stage trap. Mr. Lang hovered at the doorway, uncertain whether to step in or retreat. Patricia's fingers went to the scarf again, then deliberately, ceremonially, she loosened it and folded it into a small, exact rectangle beside her plate. I was the woman you paid for. The chandelier's facets snared the frayed thread and lit it like proof. Darren went pale. You were late for dinner, but early for decency, she said, and there was no triumph in it. Only verdict. Heat rose to my face, not shame, not pride, something steadier, like gravity remembering its job. Darren's mouth opened and closed around apologies he did not know how to form. Patricia regarded him the way one regards a door that sticks, not unloving, but impatient with hinges that should move by now. She lifted her glass an inch, not enough to toast, exactly enough to signal an end to something and the start of something else. I don't admire lateness, she said calmly, but I respect a woman who understands weather, who knows when cold is not a metaphor. The fire sighed. Mr. Lang took a half step forward. Patricia didn't look at him. She merely raised two fingers. Patricia signals to Mr. Lang. Tell the board members they can come in now. I stare at the door as two silhouettes appear in the glass reflection. Strangers holding folders stamped Whitmore Foundation. Mercy leaves a paper trail, sometimes printed with your own name. Patricia laid a Walmart receipt across the mahogany table like a verdict. The boardroom felt colder than the dining hall, smaller, harder. Portraits of Whitmore men stared from gilt frames, their oil eyes glossy with eras that had never stood in a checkout line. Lamps threw a pale gold and blue wash over the table. The air smelled faintly of polish and lake wind. I took the chair nearest the door, a habit from rooms where leaving fast was wisdom. Ms. Klein and Mr. Porter shuffled their folders. A journalist from the Madison Herald clicked a pen, red light winking on her recorder. Harold Trent, my side of the river, sat between the board and me, legal pad ready, his look saying this bridge will hold. Patricia slid the receipt to the center. This was the only investment tonight that yielded immediate returns. She nodded at Mr. Lang, who dimmed the lights and rolled a small monitor closer. A clip played, Walmart's CCTV, the flat, indifferent angle of a ceiling camera. There I was, smaller than I remember, paying, then lifting a scarf to a stranger's shoulders like a mother shielding a candle from wind. The room did not breathe. I lowered my gaze, heat rising to my face. Patricia's voice was steady. The rest of us were on time. She was right. Darren's chair scraped back. You humiliated me to prove a point? I educated you. There's a difference. Mr. Porter cleared his throat. Is this part of your leadership evaluation, Patricia? Yes, and the results are here. She opened another folder, pages already tabbed. The click of the binder rings sounded more final than any gavel. She read without theatrics, each line its own rung on a new ladder. Marin appointed as ethics advisor to the foundation. Darren to complete 60 service days at Harbor Hope. Whitmore Fund to redirect 20% of gala budget to direct outreach. Numbers followed. Beds added, heaters purchased, debt relief for winter utilities. A ledger where the profit would be warmth. Harold leaned toward the board. Compliance is straightforward. The IRS calls it charitable purpose. I call it common sense. His pen tapped once, a period. The journalist lifted her recorder slightly, as if the story had just grown a spine. Patricia turned to me. You didn't need my money. My organization needs your example. My throat tightened. I found my voice at the edge of something like relief. If we're doing this, we do it without cameras. The journalist met my eyes, professional, not unkind, then clicked the red light off. Understood. She capped her pen, a small bow of respect to silence. Patricia set the draft on the blotter, uncapped her pen, and signed. Ink glided slow, a line crossing an old border. From this moment, compassion becomes policy. I exhaled. Really exhaled, for the first time all evening, as if someone had opened a window inside my ribs. Darren's apology did not find words. It found water. He blinked hard, nodded once, palms flat on the table like a man learning where to place his hands. Ms. Klein leaned back, studying me instead of the receipt. Ethics advisor, she said slowly, as though testing the sound in her mouth. You'll need latitude, Harold answered before I could. She'll need honesty and a budget line. Latitude will follow. Patricia lifted the signed pages toward Mr. Porter. He took them with careful fingertips like relics. In the lamplight, the ink already looked older than it was, as if the idea had been waiting for this signature for years. I won't perform at a gala, I said quietly. I'll work. Patricia's mouth tilted, something like a smile, just shy of it. Work is what needs celebrating. Her gaze flicked to Darren. And learning. His eyes dropped in assent, not shame. Something gentler, like a winter branch unburdening snow. We sat in a silence that felt earned. The monitor went dark. The receipt lay where she'd placed it, a white flag that wasn't surrender. In my peripheral vision, the portraits on the walls seemed to lean a degree closer, as though even oil could concede when shown a better use of legacy. Mr. Lang opens the door. Outside, soft snow begins to fall over the lake. Patricia turns to me. Tomorrow morning, the world will know what decency looks like. I whisper back, then let's make sure it stays that way. They called it a wedding. I called it a second chance, the kind money can't buy. Spring had come to Madison, and with it, the kind of light that forgives winter. The backyard smelled of cut grass and lemon oil on old wood. String lights waited like patient constellations, the lake carrying a small wind that made the linen runners breathe. By the fence, a bulletin board leaned on an easel, photos of fresh paint, repaired stair rails, a row of new mattresses wrapped in crinkled blue. Near the center, discreetly framed, the $150 receipt glowed like a quiet candle. I traced a picture with my fingertip, Unit 2B, the one with the drafty window. We got the weather stripping right this time, I said. Darren came up beside me, sleeves rolled, a dot of primer at his wrist. He pointed to a ramp in another photo. That ramp? I installed it. Took 3 tries. I nudged him with my shoulder. Perfection is out. Persistence is in. He let the praise settle without posing for it. A new habit that fit him. Guests arrived with casseroles and soft laughter. No string quartet, just Becca from Harbor Hope tuning a guitar. Chairs squeaked across grass. Someone pinned wildflowers into mason jars. When the ceremony began, it felt less like an entrance and more like a hand resting on a shoulder. We read the vows we'd written, voices steady. We choose honesty over approval. Boots in the grass, a chord on the guitar, lake wind turning pages we hadn't reached yet. From the second row, Patricia held the scarf's edge like a ribbon of memory. Navy against navy, but looser now, almost playful. When we kissed, I caught her wiping a tear with it, then smoothing the fabric as if reminding it we were safe. After cake was cut and plates thinned to crumbs, Patricia lifted a glass. There are moments when you must choose between what looks proper and what feels right. I used to believe the world rewarded the proper. Now I know it remembers the right. She raised her glass, just enough, not high, and the quiet spread like warmth from a radiator. She crossed to the bulletin board and pinned a small brass plaque beneath the framed receipt. In quiet mercy, policy begins. Then she turned to me. The scarf is yours. I keep it to remember. You wear it to remind. I let her settle it on my shoulders. The backyard answered with a soft applause that felt like sunlight landing. Dusk deepened. The lake gathered the first stars. Volunteers told small stories. How Mrs. Harrell slept through the night for the first time in months. How Cal fixed the doorbell that startled everyone each morning. The light bulbs hummed like content bees. Later, as twilight finds the string lights, Darren whispers, "What if we start a 150 fund? Small grants for emergencies, no forms, just trust." I nod. Make it warm, not grand. From the porch, Patricia calls, "Save me a dance." I smile into the night. Kindness doesn't ask for attention. But sometimes, it changes the room. Quietly, permanently. If you've been following my story, I hope you'll take a moment to look beyond the surface, the wedding, the scarf, the receipt, and see the heart of it. I learned that decency doesn't always shout. Sometimes it just refuses to look away. If my quiet choices reminded you of someone you know, or of a moment you hesitated to help, tell me. Leave a comment, share what you'd have done, and please carry this into your life. Kindness is not a performance. It's a policy you write in the smallest hours when no one is watching.